What's up, YouTube? I wanted to do a video to show people that aren't super familiar with the third-party grading companies, the three major ones, PSA, SGC, and Beckett. I think this video will help out a lot of people that are just curious what the differences are between the three. And so, without further ado, I'll start with PSA. PSA is the original third-party company. They started back in the early 90s. I believe it was 1991 when they started. They graded the most famous card in the hobby, the T206 Wayne Gretzky Honus Wagner. Really, they're the marquee grading company in the hobby. They grade on a 1 to 10 scale, 1 being poor, 10 being gem mint. And they also have half grades, which they've been doing the last, I'd say, like 8 to 10 years. And usually a half grade means it has great eye appeal. The card has great eye appeal, but maybe didn't, like if it's a 7.5, maybe it didn't deserve an 8 in terms of the corners, but the registration and the color is really great, so it deserves a half grade. So to go over the pros of PSA. Like I said before, it's the best in the hobby. So that being said, the resale value is just better than SGC and Beckett. Nothing beats the resale value of PSA cards. They're known for vintage and modern cards, whereas SGC and Beckett really can't say the same, and I'll get into that later. They have an excellent registry. I mean, that's a huge reason why PSA cards go for more than Beckett and SGC. Also because they've just been around longer. But like a lot of people are trying to finish their sets from the PSA registry set. So that is a huge selling point for PSA cards. And you know their site is very easy to use. It's easy to search pop reports. It's just a really great website. And then another pro about PSA is they're always innovating their cases. I'm just kind of show you the evolution of PSA cases. I don't have the very old ones. The very original PSA cases had a different font. It was just kind of old school looking type font. But this is the oldest. I believe this is the oldest PSA card I have. Graded card. You can see like the font's a little bolder. The way they put gem mint is different. There's like a dash, and there's really nothing too fancy about this case. And then this is just a different way of how they use the typeface. There's no dash in gem mint. They're almost identical. I would say these were probably graded, I want to say in the early 2000s. And then they evolved into using this hologram in the back. And then more recently, I would say maybe 3 to 4 years ago, they started using the hologram on the front and on the back with a barcode as well. And now the most recent one they're using is called the Lighthouse. So it has this fancy hologram on the front and a hologram on the back with the barcode and a QR code. So now the cons of PSA, they're expensive. And I'll get into that a little later. Another con is there's long waiting times. Because so many people are submitting to PSA, the turnaround times are not always what they claim. You might put in a card for a 30-day turnaround and it might take 2 months. Also, I've heard from a lot of people that their customer service is rather so-so because they just get such a large volume of people submitting. I guess it's hard to please everyone, and so yeah, the customer service is not that great. And while I love their cases, they're slim. They're good looking. They do look really wonky sometimes in smaller cards like tobacco and caramel cards. I'll just pop up a picture of one because I don't have one in person. But as you can see, there's this kind of weird looking bag around some of their cards, like their T206 cards. So if you're really into uniform looking cards, in terms of like, oh, I want to have all my cards displayed, my T206s displayed, a couple of them are going to look different because for some reason they use this weird bag to hold smaller cards, and T206s in particular are not always cut the same, and so I guess they just weren't able to figure out a uniform case for them. But I think that's definitely a negative. In terms of pricing, pricing can be pretty. I'll just put a couple of these up. Pricing can be a pretty high. As of March 2018, these are the current prices for grading PSA cards. The gold membership is about $150, and that's includes 6 submissions and 1 year of Sports Market Report. To me, Sports Market Report is just a huge ripoff. It's kind of like a Beckett. You can check the prices, but your best way of knowing what the current prices of cards are honestly checking eBay and then going under sold listings. I mean, in some cases, SMR is helpful, but anyway, if you really break down what $150 is, that's $24 a card for 6 cards. Then they have a platinum membership, which is $250, and that's 15 submissions and 1 year of the SMR magazine. But that comes to $16 for 15 cards. So it's I guess a little bit better deal than the gold membership. In terms of their bulk submissions, you can only do bulk submissions if you're a member, but they have a 10 card minimum for $10 per card for a 30-day business turnaround. Then they have a 50 card minimum for $8 and a 45-day business, return. And then for 100 cards, it's about $7, and there's a 45 business day turnaround. Now, those bulk prices might change if you have a very valuable card, but that's kind of the general bulk. And I guess before I go into SGC, one unique thing about PSA over Beckett and SGC is that they have qualifiers on their cases, on their slabs. I don't have any to show in person, but I'll pop a few up. They have OC, which means off-center, so the card's not centered. MC, which stands for miscut. That basically means a severely off-centered card. A lot of times it was just, the factory cut was way off. Like there might be a different player bleeding into the other card. ST stands for staining. A lot of times that means there's some sort of like gum wax or residue on the back of the card or the front of the card. Or maybe there's some tobacco staining. PD, which stands for print defect. A lot of times, some of the older cards, the printing left little dots on the front of the card or the back of the card. And so sometimes PSA will pick up on that and they'll put that down as a qualifier. OF stands for out of focus. You don't really see that too often, but that means the registration or the clarity of the card, which is so off that it deserves the OF qualifier. And then finally, MK, which stands for marks. So a lot of times you see that in older cards. If there's like a pencil mark or a pen mark on the front or back, they'll indicate that. So that's PSA. SGC. Put some SGC cards up. SGC has been around since 1998. So I believe that's like 7 years after PSA. They started grading basically during the huge 1998 home run boom of baseball. But they've been around for a long time. They're a very reputable grading company. They're on par with PSA in terms of reliability when it comes to grading. They started off doing this 2-digit grading system where, a 40 would basically mean a VG3, A 55 would meet 4.5. But so the old school SGC cards didn't even include the VG or whatever EX gem mints. They just had the numbering system. But then later on they included both because it was just really confusing, and I think they wanted to compete with PSA. But they have their grade point scale is 10 to 100. So 10 usually means poor, and I think 100 is a new thing for them. 100 means pristine. Before it was like 10 to 98, and 98 meant gem mint. But I think the 100 pristine is trying to compete with Beckett because Beckett now has pristine cards. So anyway, but just to show the evolution of SGC cases, I don't have the very old ones. The very old ones had this really old school looking font, but this one's pretty old because it has the gold emblem on the back. And then they evolved into this, which just doesn't have the emblem on the back. And now the current one has this watermark on the front. And actually, they had one prior to this that for like maybe 6 months that did not have the green border on it, and a lot of people complained, including myself, on Net54, and they brought back the green border because it just looked weird to have an SGC card without the classic green border. So the pros of SGC, like I said, they're very reputable. They've graded all kinds of cards, from the Honus Wagner to the Babe Ruth rookies. I mean, you have some top dollar cards graded in SGC. Another pro is that they're not a very long turnaround because their volume is just low. I think they have actually just 4 graders, and SGC or PSA has, I think, 13 graders, but they just don't get the same volume of cards submitted as PSA, so they're much more reliable on their turnaround. They have great customer service. I mean, you can contact them and they'll immediately get back to you. I mean, like I said, a fair amount of people on the Net54 forum complained about getting rid of them getting rid of the green border, and they brought back the green border. I mean, that just fantastic customer service. I actually recently submitted something to them, and there was a delay by like a month, but it was because of all the flooding going on, and they gave me like 2 vouchers for free grades. I mean, so outstanding customer service. Also, another pro is I think their black cases look amazing, especially when you have a white border card. I mean, I think they look great, tobacco cards and Gaudi cards. Cons, though. Speaking of the cases are not well made. I mean, they just, I don't know, they don't have the same quality build as a PSA or Beckett case. The plastic just doesn't feel as strong. There's been little improvement, if any, since the beginning of SGC cards in 1998. I mean, the slab has been identical. I mean, SGC is always increasing the build of their cards, their slabs, whereas I've seen no improvement. I mean, their biggest technological improvement was adding a watermark, which to me is really easy to forge. Also, sometimes this black, basically it's cardboard that's in the black border. Sometimes it doesn't properly contain the card. So I've submitted some cards to SGC and I've gotten them back, and the T206 was sliding around in it, or it was actually just almost coming out above the cardboard. So that doesn't often happen, but that can happen with SGC, whereas I've never seen that happen with PSA or Beckett. Another con is the older generation tends to like SGC, which, I mean, that's great, but it makes you wonder if the slabs will hold their value down the road. And, it makes you wonder, like, will it be around in 10, 20 years? Because generally speaking, the only people that are submitting to SGC are people, give or take, in their 40s to 70s. I mean, because it's almost primarily people that submit vintage cards. You will see modern cards graded in SGC, but not too many. And their market is primarily older cards. But PSA is known for doing vintage and new, where these guys are strictly known for grading vintage. So that's just something to think about. Another con is they have a terrible registry. They do have a registry, but it's just so hard to use online. Their popular report is very difficult to use. Just their website needs a complete overhaul. I think it could have a lot of promise, but like it's really, really complicated and difficult to use. In terms of their pricing, I just need some water. Their pricing, they're the cheapest of the three grading companies. Their select level membership is $125, and you get 10 grades. You also get a bag and a t-shirt. But that basically comes to $12.50 a card. So you get 10 cards for $12.50 each. Whereas PSA's entry-level membership is $24 a card for only 6 cards. SGC's premium level is $350, and that's for 30 grades, a bag, a t-shirt, and a book. The books are usually pretty cool. They're like, autographed books about T206s, whatever the monthly special is on a book. But that theoretically comes to $11.60 per card for 30 cards, which is a pretty damn good deal. Whereas PSA's premier membership, their I think it's called the Platinum membership, you only get 15 cards, and that comes to $16 a card. So, SGC is only $11.60, so it's a pretty damn good deal. They don't really have bulk services. The thing about PSA is if you belong to their membership, you get access to these bulk memberships. I believe you can call to someone at SGC and you can work out a deal for a bulk service, but it doesn't. There's no listing on their website. Also, if you want to break it down, you can just submit a card for a 10-day turnaround. If the card's under $500, it's just $15, whereas PSA it's $20 for a card valued at less than $500 for a 10-day turnaround. It's $35 for a card valued more than $500 but less than $1,000 for a 5-day turnaround. PSA is $50. So huge difference in pricing. I couldn't figure out any information about their autograph grading pricing, but I'm assuming it's much less than PSA and Beckett. They have great monthly specials too. Like, you don't have to be a member. Unlike PSA, you have to be a member to have access to their specials. SGC, you don't have to be a member. I mean, I've seen monthly specials where you can grade a T206 for $7 to $8 a card, which is a great deal. Okay, so now we are into Beckett. I only have 2 graded Beckett cards. So Beckett is the newest of the bunch. Their forte is mostly modern cards, especially modern autograph cards, like you see here. Collectors are all about using Beckett for grading, oftentimes grading autograph rookies like the Bowman Chrome. Almost all of the first Bowman Chrome autos you see online, at least from the 2000s, are Beckett graded. It's pretty hard to find a PSA graded, 2000, 14 Bowman Chrome auto. Just everyone grades, not everyone, but a lot of the youth, as they say, grade autograph rookies with Beckett. So that's kind of a pro though. I mean, they are putting their own niche. They definitely have a niche in the market, and that's grading these autograph rookies. Another pro is that I think it's really helpful that you can see how the card was graded. They have these subgrades with centering, corners, edges, and surface, which is unique. No other grading service does that. Another pro is that they have a decent turnaround time, and their customer service is pretty good because, again, the volume isn't nearly as high as PSA, but I would say their volume is probably more than an SGC in terms of people submitting cards. Another pro is that their cards are very well built. I mean, they're thick plastic cards, which could be also be a negative because they're much thicker than SGC and PSA. I mean, you can see them stacked up. This is the Beckett card. It's just a lot thicker. They are definitely well made. And another pro is they're a little cheaper to grade than PSA, which I'll get into. A con, though, now we're getting into the cons of Beckett, is I found that a fair amount of their cards, their grading tag falls down. I mean, I don't know what that's about, but you see that a lot on cards listed on eBay. Another con is they're not great for grading vintage. Their vintage grading service is called BVG, and I just feel that their grading for vintage cards is way too lenient compared to PSA and SGC. Oftentimes, they'll grade trimmed cards. Like if you see a BVG, I don't know, 6, T206, most likely it might be graded. Like they don't do a good job of recognizing trimmed cards. And if you see like a BVG 3, let's say Bob Ewing, it's going to sell a lot less than a PSA 3 Bob Ewing or a SGC 40 Bob Ewing. They don't sell as well in the vintage market as SGC and PSA. And I don't have an example of a BVG graded card. I guess I'll pop it up. But they don't. It would have been great if they kept the subgrades for their vintage grading. I think they used to back in the day, but now they don't show subgrades when they're grading their BVG cards. Also, sorry, I need some water. I would say that their gem mint, this 9.5, does not typically sell as well as a PSA 10 card. So let's just pretend that this is a Frank Thomas PSA and this is a Frank Thomas Gem Mint 10. The Gem Mint 10 PSA would sell for a higher price than the Beckett Frank Thomas Gem Mint 10. They just do. Beckett does have a pristine, which I just think is, I don't know, that's almost like a scam. I think the pristine's a relatively new grade. I could be wrong, but like maybe the last 5 years. They also have a black label, meaning like all the subgrades are 10. And I guess that does sell better than a PSA 10, but those are really, really rare. But overall, a PSA 10 will always outsell a Beckett Gem Mint 9.5. Also, they have this graded card service called BCCG, which is also sort of a scam, I think. It's just a way to get your card slabbed and protected, which I guess is good. But I kind of think that hurts the overall, image of their company, because the cards that are in the BCCG cases are just, they could be really any grade, and they'll just say that it's like a 9 or a 10. They also have a raw graded card service where it's just basically a card in a top loader or a those submission sleeves, and it will have what they think it will grade out as if you were to submit it to Beckett. Another con, I don't actually, that's not a con. I think that's kind of interesting that they have raw graded service. But another con to me is they don't really have a great registry. Their website is just terrible to navigate, much like SGC. I think it's even more complicated to navigate than SGC's. It's just they really need to improve their website. And another con is they have terrible membership deals. I'll just kind of break down the pricing of their membership deal. Their lowest level, their bronze level, is $130 for 6 cards, a t-shirt or a bag, and a 1 month online subscription to their Beckett, I guess, pricing magazine. So that basically comes to $21.66 a card for 6 cards. Put that in comparison with PSA, it's $24 for 6 cards. SGC is $12.50 for 10 cards, so it's a little better deal than PSA. Then their next level, gold level, is $260 for 12 cards, a t-shirt, a storage box, and 3-month subscription online. But that comes to $21.66 a card. Not a great deal. Their platinum level is $440. That's for 18 cards, 3-month Beckett magazine subscription, a 3-month online subscription, a storage box, and a pen. Ooh, whoop-de-doo. But that comes to $24.44, which is crazy. Like their platinum level is not a. Usually, when you go higher up in level, you get a better deal on a discounted service in terms of grades. So it went from $21.66 at their bronze level to $24.44 at their platinum level for a card to get graded. Then at their titanium level is $720. That's 24 grades, 3-month magazine, 6-month online subscription, a storage box, a polo. And that comes to $30 a card. I think that's just insane. It's $21 for a 10-day turnaround of a card value less than $500, which is, pretty good deal. PSA is $20, SGC is $15 for that same service. It's $30 for a 5-day turnaround of a card valued between $500 and $1,000. PSA is $50, so it's a better deal than PSA. SGC is only $35. So basically, Beckett is right in the middle in terms of their pricing. Well, no, I'm sorry, they're not in the middle. They're the highest. If you really break down the pricing of grading per card. So I guess in conclusion, if you stuck around this long, actually, before I get into conclusion, there's a couple companies I should note. There's 3 companies that you should avoid. It's Gem Mint, ProGraded, and Global. Gem Mint and ProGraded they're basically just scams. They almost always grade cards 9 and 10. I don't think they're even around anymore. Global used to be legit. I believe they were previously graders at PSA, but their quality of grades just went downhill. I don't know if they're still around. They might still be around for grading packs, but I wouldn't rely on Gem Mint, ProGrade, or Global. They're just not reputable companies. So in conclusion, PSA is definitely king. They've been around the longest. They have the greatest resale, return on investment, whatever you want to say. Their grading prices are decent. SGC, great looking cases, especially for vintage cards. They're the most affordable grading company in terms of grading your cards. They don't resell as high as PSA, and they're not known for grading modern cards. You just won't see this card in a SGC case. Beckett, they're very popular for autographed cards. They have a strong young fan base, but their pricing is just not great. But that being said, I think it's all about what you're into. If you're into vintage, SGC is great. If you're into the new shiny autograph stuff, Beckett was great for that. PSA, kind of great all around. But yeah, I think they all have their own unique qualities about them, and that's it. Thanks for watching.